My aunt just absolutely ruined my wedding. See, I didn't want to invite her in the first place, but my family begged. They literally said, "You can't ruin the family vibe." They were saying if I don't invite her, then she's going to be mad at me at Thanksgiving and she's going to make a big mess of it. But here's the thing. I knew from the very get-go that inviting her would end in certain disaster. And it did. She brought 6 swans, and they came flying out of a big old minivan, and, well, I'm not going to ruin the story by telling you what they did, but just know, she ruined my wedding. Okay, some background. Aunt Denise has always been what my family generously calls extra. She's the kind of person who brings glitter cannons to baby showers. She's once gifted this monogrammed hand towels at funerals because she thought the grieving widow needed something cheerful in her life. Every holiday, every gathering, every life event became an opportunity for Denise to insert herself in the center of attention. Under the guise of being thoughtful or whimsical, it's exhausting. But until now, it was mostly harmless, annoying, yeah, boundary crossing, sometimes, but never catastrophic. In the months leading up to my wedding to Adam, Denise kept hinting that she had the perfect surprise planned. She would text me things like, "Just wait until you see what I have in store," and told anyone who would listen that she was going to elevate the day from Pinterest to cinematic. I want to be very clear about something. I told her multiple times in no uncertain terms that I did not want any surprise performances. You know, flash mobs or just big moments. I hate being emotionally ambushed and I hate spectacles, and I wanted a calm, elegant ceremony by the lake with people I love and zero chaos. I told Denise this directly and told my mother, who I assumed would relay it. I mentioned it at a family dinner and I could not have been more clear. And every time I said it, Denise would smile that knowing smile and say something like, "Don't worry, sweetheart, you'll love it. It's classy." Which in retrospect should have been a flashing red warning sign. Nothing Denise has ever done could be described as classy. The venue was a lakeside estate about 40 minutes outside of town, beautiful grounds, a manicured garden, a rented floral arc covered in white roses and eucalyptus, a very strict rules and the contract about decor, open flames, and of course animals. I remember seeing the clause about animals requiring prior written approval. It was bold, but it never occurred to me that anyone in the family would actually try to bring an animal to the wedding. That felt like a problem for other people. People with chaotic relatives who did insane things. Not me, I was wrong. The week before the wedding, Denise texted me a single swan emoji surrounded by hearts. I stared at it for maybe 5 seconds before deciding it was just one of her weird, overly romantic gestures, like she was trying to say the wedding would be graceful or elegant. So I text back a thumbs up and moved on with my life. When my best friend Jenna asked if Denise was being weird, I just shrugged and said, she lives her own Pinterest board. I should have pushed. I should have demanded answers, but I was drowning in last-minute vendor issues and seating chart drama, and I genuinely did not have the bandwidth to manage Denise on top of everything else. A few days before the ceremony, Denise offered to handle something special for the, events. When I asked what she meant, she got unreasonably offended. She said that I had control issues and that I should just accept a gift. Adam told me not to stress about it. He assumed she was planning something like rose petals or maybe hiring a string quartet. I don't know. Something annoying, but ultimately fine. We underestimated her. We underestimated her so bad. The morning of the wedding, everything was really chaotic. The florist was late, the cake was stuck in traffic, somewhere on the highway. My nerves were completely fried. I was in the bridal suit getting my makeup done when Denise arrived, late, sweating, wearing an enormous floppy hat that made her look like she was about to go undercover at a horse race. She refused to let anyone help with whatever she had in her car. I caught a glimpse of a rented white van parked in the lot with the back doors closed, and Denise hovering near it like a prison guard. When I asked what was in the van, she just smiled and said, "Delivery. Go back inside, you need to finish getting ready." Twice during the morning, I heard a strange sound drifting through the bridal suite window. A low, rhythmic honking. I assumed it was a goose somewhere on the lake. The estate did have wildlife, you know. It didn't seem unusual. But I noticed Mr. Alvarez, the venue manager, pacing near the ceremony area with a tense expression. He kept checking his watch and muttering about unapproved elements, and my mother, bless her, actually asked Denise directly if she had cleared her surprise with the venue. Denise waved her off with a sharp, I know what I'm doing, don't ruin this for her, and no one pushed further. It was my wedding day. There were already a dozen small fires to put out, and nobody wanted to add a confrontation with Denise to the list. As the ceremony time approached, Denise disappeared entirely. I didn't think much of it. She loves to work a room, so I assumed she was somewhere charming guest or taking too many photos. I was too focused on not tripping over my dress to go looking for her. Right before the proceedings began, Jenna leaned in close and whispered, "Do you hear that?" From somewhere behind the floral art came a muffled sound. It was flapping, and this same strange honking. It's so much louder in my head now. I told myself it was just birds near the water. It was not just birds near the water, though. The ceremony started normal. Soft music was playing, guests took their seats, and Adam stood under the ark looking nervous and happy. And I felt my heart swell as I stepped onto the aisle. For about 15 seconds, everything was exactly what I dreamt of. Then I noticed people were not looking at me anymore. They were looking past me. Their expressions shifted from polite attention to confusion to something closer to alarm. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I thought maybe my veil had come undone or my dress had torn, and I turned slightly. And that's when I saw Aunt Denise standing near the back of the venue with both arms raised dramatically above her own head like she was conducting an orchestra. She shouted, "Now!" Someone I didn't recognize, later I learned she hired as an assistant for this, yanked open the back door of the white van. 6 large, and I mean large, white swans exploded out of the vehicle like they were shot from a cannon. I want you to understand, I had never been this close to a swan before. See, in my mind, swans were elegant, peaceful creatures. The kind you see gliding across a pond in a romantic movie. I was, how do you say this? Catastrophically wrong. These swans did not glide, they launched. Wings flapping violently, necks extended, hissing like a demon, they barreled into the aisle like they were storming a medieval battlefield. Guests were screaming, chairs were toppled. One swan, the biggest one, ran directly at me, its massive wings beating the air hard enough that I could feel the wind against my face, and it was hissing. I didn't know swans could hiss like that. The sound was aggressive, almost reptilian. I froze, and I couldn't move. The swan lunged at my dress. Its beak was clamping down on the end of the dress, yanking so hard I stumbled sideways and nearly fell. Somewhere behind me, I heard Denise yelling, "They're symbols of love, they're just excited," as if we were all overreacting, as if the guests weren't scrambling over each other for escape. Jenna tried to fend off another swan with her bouquet of flowers, swinging like a weapon while the bird snapped at her legs. Little Dylan, our ring bearer, sprinted down the aisle screaming and clutching the ring pillow over his head like a helmet while the swan chased him with terrifying determination. Adam tried to grab the swan, attacking me. He actually grabbed it by the neck and twisted it around, and it bit his arm so hard that it left a bright red welt that later turned into a bruise the size of a plum. The floral arc, that beautiful arc I'd spent weeks selecting flowers for, collapsed when 2 swans slammed into the base. Roses, eucalyptic branches scattered everywhere. A groomsman backed up too fast and slipped on fallen petals and spilled champagne, and tumbled off the dock into the lake with a splash that soaked the front row. A swan followed him into the water and circled him like a predator guarding its prey. The cake was next. One swan even launched itself on top of the dessert table, and I watched in horror as all 4 tiers collapsed in slow motion. Frosting splattered everywhere, a perfect swan footprint stamped directly into the remaining of the top tier, and another swan found the gift table and trampled every envelope. Through all this, Denise kept clapping and yelling, "This is so majestic, this is cinema." One swan ripped my veil clean off my head and tried to run away with it, dragging it across the grass like a trophy. I don't know how long the chaos lasted, it felt like hours. But in reality, it was probably 10 minutes. Eventually, staff appeared with brooms and sheets trying to herd the swans back to the van. One swan bit the broom clean off the staff member's hands and it tossed it aside. Another swan cornered my grandma near the bar until Adam physically put himself between them. Little Dylan was hiding under the table and the swan stuck its head under the tablecloth after him. Its long neck was snaking towards him like something out of a horror movie. Guests were bleeding. Jenna had a beak-shaped bruise forming on her thigh. At least 3 people had torn clothing. And everywhere, there were feathers. 5 of the 6 swans were eventually corralled back into their transport crates using a combination of bread, desperation, and sheer determination. But, in the chaos, one swan slipped through a gap in the fence and took off toward the tree line at the far edge of the property. It disappeared into the woods near the lake. Denise said, "Oh no, my baby," as if she just watched a beloved pet escape, completely ignoring the destruction her babies had caused, ruining my wedding. The ceremony's over. There was no recovering from this. Nobody was in the mood to restart the vows, obviously. Not even close. Under a shredded arc with feathers stuck to the frosting on the ruined cake, Adam and I ended up signing the marriage license in a side room, while staff mopped up water and cake remnants in the background. My makeup was streaking down my face, and, well, Mr. Alvarez pulled me aside afterward. He was calm, professional, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He explained that there would be an additional charge for extensive damage and unapproved animals on the premises. He listed them: the floral arc, the linens, the damaged furniture, the cake cleanup, potential lawn repair, where the swans had tore up the grass, obviously, and I just nodded. I didn't have the energy to argue. I didn't have the energy to do anything except stand there and absorb the fact that this was now my wedding story forever. A week later, Adam and I received an itemized invoice from the venue. The extra charges were substantial. I won't say the exact number, but it was more than we budgeted for the entire reception dinner. One line on the invoice literally said avian destruction and cleanup. I circled it, took a screenshot, and sent it to Jenna and Adam. I was laughing, but the kind of laughing that's about 2 degrees away from crying. When I approached Denise about the bill, she acted like I just accused her of a war crime. She was shocked. She was offended. She insisted the swans were a gift from the heart and that I should be grateful because, quote, "nobody will ever forget your wedding now." I pointed out that being remembered as the bird attack wedding was not exactly the legacy I hoped for. She told me I was being materialistic, that I was choosing to focus on stuff instead and, well, magic she tried to create. When I suggested calmly I thought she was at least offering to split the damages, and she scoffed. She actually scoffed at me. She said she already spent a fortune renting the swans and that was her contribution, as if unleashing hell and then disappearing counted as a gift. My parents were useless. They agreed Denise had messed up, but they begged me to just let it be, to keep the family peace, to let it go. As if I could just forget the sight of a swan chasing a screaming child down, or the feeling of my veil being ripped off my head, or the invoice sitting on my kitchen counter. Meanwhile, the photos were circulating. Someone had filmed the whole disaster. Multiple someones. My wedding was a TikTok video now. And guys, I'm just here to ask, am I the a-hole for refusing to pay Denise back for the cost of renting the swans? She keeps telling people I'm an ungrateful brat and that I owe her for her contribution. I never even said thank you. My parents think I should just pay and make it go away. But I can't wrap my mind around that idea that I should be financially rewarding someone for ruining my wedding. Update number 1. It's been 3 weeks since the main post, and I genuinely don't know where to begin. Okay guys, first of all, the bill. After days of back and forth with Denise that went absolutely nowhere, I finally gave up. She completely fundamentally was incapable of accepting responsibility for what went down. In her mind, the swans were romantic, the chaos was spontaneous magic, and anybody who was upset, including the guests were literally bitten, was simply failing to appreciate the vision. She told my mother that I was holding a grudge and that she was hurt by my reaction. She was hurt, huh? The woman who destroyed my wedding and left me with a 4-figure damage invoice was hurt because I was thanking her enough. Come on! My parents doubled down on their keep the peace approach, and my mother actually called me to say that Denise had been crying about the whole situation and that I should consider reaching out to smooth things over. And when I asked if Denise had offered to pay even a portion, I'm talking 20% of the venue damages, there was a long silence. That was the answer enough. So I paid the bill. Oh yeah. Adam and I split between 2 credit cards. It felt like swallowing glass, knowing that money was going towards cleaning up a mess I didn't ask for, never wanted, and specifically tried to prevent. But I couldn't stomach the idea of fighting about it anymore. I was exhausted in a way that felt permanent, like the fatigue had settled into my bones. The injured guests have been understanding. Mostly. Madison, one of my bridesmaids, sent me a photo of the bruise on her calf with the caption that said, "Battle scars from your wedding, LOL." She was joking, but I could see in her eyes at the brunch that we had last week that something had shifted. There was a witness there now when Denise's name came up, a careful changing of subjects. Jenna's bruises faded, but she told me that she still flinches sometimes when she sees a bird at the park. She laughed when she said it, but I didn't think she was joking. Little Dylan, the ring bearer, still won't talk to me. His mother, Adam's sister, mentioned that he's been having trouble sleeping, that he has to check the backyard for the white monster. He's 6 years old. He should be worried about normal 6-year-old things like Fortnite or Beyblades, not about being chased by a bird at his uncle's wedding. And then there's the swan. I need to explain something. I need to explain something about where Adam and I moved. See, we bought a house about 2 months before the wedding. It's a small place in a quaint neighborhood across town from where I grew up. It's nice. Lots of young families, trees line the streets, you know the type. A little park at the end of the block. We were so excited. Our first real home together. So, the first morning after we got back from our abbreviated honeymoon, we cut it short. Neither of us were in the mood to pretend anything was fine in Cancun. I was standing at the kitchen window making a cup of joe when I saw something in the cul-de-sac that made me go very still. A white swan standing in the middle of the street like it belonged there, large, calm, its feathers bright against the asphalt. It had a slightly crooked neck feather on its left side, bent at an odd angle like it's been damaged. I told myself, oh no, this is a coincidence, There's a pond about a half-mile away. Swans can wander. It didn't mean anything. Then it turned its head and looked directly at me. I felt my stomach drop. The stare was familiar. That flat, unblinking, black-eyed gaze that I've seen up close when one of those things were lunging at my dress. I stepped back from the windows. My hands were shaking at this moment. I didn't tell Adam about it that first morning. I convinced myself I was being paranoid, that my brain was just pattern matching, that trauma was making me see threats that were, not there. But the swan came back. The next day it was standing near the mailbox. 2 days after that, it was waddling slow down the sidewalk in front of our home, pausing occasionally to peck at the grass. It never approached the door, though. It never did anything overtly threatening, but it was there. It was always there at the edge of my vision, at the peripheries of my morning routine. So, our neighbor across the street, I'm gonna butcher her name, Miss Okanokiwa. Okay. Mentioned it casually one afternoon when I was bringing in groceries. She said a big white bird had been wandering the neighborhood lately, that it had chased a jogger down the block last Tuesday and hissed at the FedEx driver so aggressively that he threw the package at the door. She said it was like amusing neighborhood gossip, just one of those weird suburban things, right? I smiled and nodded, and didn't tell her that I was fairly certain that bird had attacked my wedding. I started watching for it. Every morning I would stand at the window before Adam woke up and scanned the street. Sometimes the swan was there, sitting in a neighbor's yard or standing at the edge of the sidewalk. I think the weirdest part, guys, I'm like 10 minutes from the venue. That's pretty far for a swan to find me. I made the mistake of mentioning the swan to my mother during a phone call. She immediately told Denise, who apparently was delighted by the news. Denise texted me the next day saying she was so glad none of my babies found you. What? She's calling them her babies, and she says it's clearly a sign that the magic of your wedding is following you home. She included 3 heart emojis. I didn't respond. She followed up 2 days later asking if I named it yet. She suggested the word grace or serenity. Okay, I blocked her number. The Swan situation has escalated. It's not like dramatic. I mean, there's no single moment where it became terrifying. It's more like a gradual accumulation of wrongs. 2 weeks ago, I come home from work to find it sitting directly under our front window, settled into the grass like it had claimed that spot, and it didn't move when I pulled into the driveway. It just watched me walk from the car to the door. Its head was tracking my movement with mechanical precision, and when I got inside, I looked out the window and it was still there, still staring at the spot where I was standing. Adam tried to chase it off with a broom one evening. Oh, he didn't even get close, he's not stupid. But he waved the broom and shouted and tried to look intimidating. The swan wasn't having it. The swan hissed, flapped its wings once, and then strutted down the sidewalk like it was mildly annoyed but completely unafraid. Yeah, it was back the next morning. So, I don't know, late at night sometimes I hear sounds outside. A dual thump against the front step. The faint scrape of something moving on the concrete, and I don't go to the window anymore when I hear trauma. I just lie there in dark, listening, waiting for it to stop. I don't know. I've looked into it, what to do about nuisance swans. Apparently they're protected in some states, including mine. And even when they're not, animal control has limited resources and limited interest in chasing one bird around a suburban neighborhood. Yeah. My relatives think it's hilarious. My cousin sent me a meme about emotional support swans. You can't make this up. But every time I see it standing there in the early morning light, I still remember the chaos of the day, the screaming guest. I mean, what would you do? Anyways, I'm mumbling at this point. I'll update if anything changes or if it doesn't. Update 2. This is the final update. It's been 2 months since the last post. So, the neighborhood was adjusting in the way neighborhoods adjust to anything that don't directly affect them. Miss O, I'm tired of butchering her last name, so I'll just call her Miss O, still mentions it sometimes. Apparently it chased her cat up a tree last month, which she found more amusing than alarming for some reason. I mean, she's a character. The mail carrier had started leaving packages at the end of our driveway instead of the porch. I mean, I can't blame him. Adam and I have developed a routine around it. Mornings, I check the window before going outside. If the swan's there, sometimes it moves on after 10 or 15 minutes. I tried to scare it once, about 3 weeks ago. I was running late for work and it was blocking the path to my car. I was just so tired of it. I grabbed an umbrella and marched outside, opening and closing it aggressively and making noises. I didn't care. The swan didn't move. It just turned its head slowly and looked at me with those flat black eyes, and I felt something cold settle in my chest, not fear. Something older, something that predates language. I went back inside and called in late to work. Denise is still blocked on everything, but information reaches me anyway through the family channels. Apparently she's been telling people I'm overreacting to the wedding, and the grudge against her is ruining family harmony. She brought it up in my cousin's birthday party last week, which I did not attend, and said that she was devastated by how ungrateful I've been. Multiple relatives have reached out to suggest I extend an olive branch for the sake of Thanksgiving. I haven't responded to any of them, and the venue sent a final notice a few weeks ago confirming that all the damages have been paid and our file was closed. There was a line at the bottom, almost like a postscript, mentioning that they've updated their rental contract to include an explicit prohibition on birds of any kind. They thanked us for bringing this attention of the issue. So I printed the email and put it on the folder with the invoice, evidence of what I'm not sure, but it feels important to have a record. Guys, I'm going to end this with, do you think I'm the a-hole for essentially blocking her on everything? Please, let me know